Thanks for joining us. My name is Braden. I'd like to welcome you to our kitchen. Today I'm going to be doing the first dish that I was ever taught how to cook. It's actually just a basic spaghetti sauce. However, there is a slight twist. We had extra stuff that needed to be cooked, and so it's going into it as well. Before we start that, I would like to say again, thank you for joining us. I wanted to start this because I know a lot of us out there have issues with depression, anxiety. We have issues with grief, anger, addiction, suicide attempts. I've suffered from them. My wife has. Other people in our family have. Friends have. All of us know people that have. And when you are one of those people and you're suffering alone, you feel like you're alone, but I needed to go out there and tell you that you're not. It took over 20-something years for me to realize, like, I'm not. It took my wife, my cousin, and a few friends to show me that, and our daughter. So, again, thank you guys, and let's have some fun. All right, so start things off. What you need and what I got for it is Italian sausage. You can do sweet or spicy. You can do vegetarian, chicken, pork, however you want to do it. That's on you. I'm doing vegetarian sausages. I'm doing chickpea noodles. Do whatever noodle you want to do. Outside of that, the only other things you're really going to need are onion, garlic, tomato sauce. I'm going to use 2 cans tomato sauce and 1 can of diced tomatoes just because I've got extra raw tomato to throw in there. You're also going to need, if you want, some form of Italian spices. I prefer using fresh basil, thyme and rosemary from our garden, oregano from our garden. You don't have to use fresh. You can use dry. You can either go to the store and get the Italian herb blends, or if you don't like specific flavors, you can just get onion powder and garlic powder, or you can just get basil powder. It's all up to you. All right. You'll also need olive oil or butter. I prefer olive oil for spaghetti. So I'm going to go ahead and cook the pan real quick. Go ahead and get it warmed up. 2 to 3 swirls around it. Real quick, I don't measure. I don't do recipes. My recipes are writing down ideas. The measurements are generally by sight, smell, and taste. I'm a firm believer in tasting as you go. I've been messing around in the kitchen to help, deal with my stress, my anxiety, my depression for years, because it was something that I could do. Well, rather, it gave me something to do. It gave me something to play with, to create something new. And it gave me something to occupy my time and my mind. And, slowly over time, that same skill just kept developing. And people said, "Oh, your food's good." And I'm like, "Bullshit. No, it's not. That tastes awful." And, years went on, same thing over and over. And then finally I started believing that, okay, maybe it's all right, because people keep saying they like my gumbo, and maybe one day I'll show you how to make that, but that'd be a long damn stream, and I'd have to choose to devote at least 8 to 12 hours to it. So we'll see. I would have music, but I have not been on a computer weekly in over 20 years, and I have not been on social media in the last few, so all this has been a learning curve. Musicians like getting paid too. To play the songs I would like to play for this stream, I need to look into getting the licenses in order to play them on the stream, so I apologize for that. I have yet to find any royalty-free music that does not make me want to stab screwdrivers into my ears. So, I have earbuds behind my head right now. They've got music going. my intent was to have music going and me do my version of dancing, which is really just bouncing around spastically, but to each their own. Oh shit. I did not think of how to fill dead space without music. Yeah,
Not cutting.
Well, alright, there we go. So, any of you that are new to the kitchen, when you're cutting up and prepping your stuff, you want to make sure that you have a sharp knife that is right for you. I prefer this style of Santoku knife. It fits my hand right. I like the blade. You don't have to have an expensive knife to cook good food. I spent $15 on this knife 19 years ago, and it is still my favorite knife. It holds an edge better than any of my other high-end knives, and I don't think I will ever get rid of it. I don't know what it is about some of these cheaper knives, but they actually turn out to be better than expected. So, don't disregard a piece of kitchen equipment just because it's cheap, and don't buy it just because it's expensive. Just because it's either or doesn't mean it's necessarily good. And you'll also learn I am not a proponent for kitchen gadgets. Kitchen gadgets drive me nuts. If I can do it with a knife or a fork or a spoon or a whisk, I don't want to have to buy something that's going to clutter up more space in my drawers. I have a hard enough time getting rid of stuff in the kitchen anyway, so I definitely don't need more of it. But, if it makes your life easier, you do you. That's, I'm not judging on that. This is all just personal preference. Anyway, when you're using your knife, you want to make sure that your fingers aren't out like this. It's a good way to lose the tips of them. Keep your fingers in. I generally prefer to run the blade against the knuckles and fingers curved in. Some people like fingers straight up and down, and some people just, like cutting themselves over and over. So it is what it is. Also, when it comes to knives and prep work, you are more likely to cut yourself and cut yourself worse with a dull knife than a sharp knife because you are trying harder to cut through things. So, right knife, right job, and, make sure they're sharp, please. I would have gone ahead and prepped all this ahead of time, but this was all just kind of a spur of the moment thing. There was a comment earlier on one of my posts where I want to say his name is Michael Robbins. He had commented about how he thought he was the only one, because apparently he also suffers from, ADHD and depression and anxiety, and it just kind of stopped me as I was leaving work because we do feel that way. We feel like we're the only one that it's just our struggle, and a lot of times it does feel like you're going through it alone. And it was in that moment that it kind of dawned on me. It's like it feels like it's just your struggle. But, if you have anyone that relies on you or counts on you or depends on you, it's not just your struggle. You have someone else relying on you. So what happens to you affects them too. So, when your anxiety or your depression is so bad that you can't go to work to get paid, or you can't get out of bed, or you don't want to eat, that affects more than just you. My habits and my addictions and my depression affected more than just me. It affected my wife. It affected our daughter. It affected our friends. It affected our families. I'd say that I regret it, but it's not necessarily that I regret it, because to say that would mean that I also regret the person I am today. Because those choices and actions made me the person that I am now. I wouldn't have learned some of the lessons I learned. I may have screwed up even worse. Who knows? It's not that I did it that I regret. It's that my actions themselves affected so many of those around me that either cared for me or that I cared for. unfortunately, shitty part of addiction. It happens for whichever reason, and we get so self-involved that either we don't notice or we're just suffering so much that we notice, but the pain feels worse than the pain that we feel from knowing that we're hurting our loved ones. And it sucks. And if you've gone through that, I mean, you know it. I did not do rehab. I did not do AA. I'm sober for the first time in 21, 22 years. No alcohol, no pills, no coke, no opiates, and no prescription medication either. I was on prescription pain medication for my back, and I chose to come off that as well because it was essentially slowing down my digestive system and giving me gastroparesis. So I came off that, and yes, life sucked horribly for about 2.5 weeks while my body adjusted to, the withdrawals and everything else. But made it through it and realized, I wasn't in as much pain as I thought I was as I originally was when I first herniated the discs in my lower back. And it's like, yeah, I got bad days, and some days are worse than others, but it's not as bad. But now I'm rambling again. Wife brings up a good point. I need to tell you what I'm cutting up and putting in there. All right. So, and I apologize for this. I do this with whoever's in my kitchen anyway. I just start rambling to whoever's seated next to me. And that's you. So, all right. So what I just got done prepping was I just chopped up 2 small yellow onions. You can use yellow, sweet, red, all your preference. I prefer yellow or sweet onions. I also cut up 2 small on the vine tomatoes, a yellow bell pepper, and I think that was like 6 cloves of garlic, which also minced up, which all that is now about to go into the pot, which I forgot to heat up first. Now, if I had pork sausage, I would actually be cooking the pork Italian sausage first, because I would want the seasoning and the flavors and the fats from the sausage in the pan with the olive oil before I put in my onions and the peppers and garlic and everything else, because as that all sautés together, the flavors from the meat and the seasonings from the meat will go ahead and they will imbue themselves into the flavor and everything melds together. However, I'm using vegetarian sausages, which I think it says had like eggplant and potato and stuff, so if I put those in now, they will overcook. So I got to do all my raw veggies first and my seasonings, then the tomato, then the sausage, then the tomato sauce. Now, I'm not going to show this whole process from start to when we get it plated, because that would take way too long, because I like to simmer this sauce for a few hours in order to make it thicker. You do your spaghetti your way. If you like it runnier, have it thinner. If you like it, thick and chunky, then by all means throw in, a can of tomato paste and simmer it down till, the spoon sticks straight up and down. I prefer it somewhere in the middle, and I also don't like using tomato paste because I don't like how it thickens up my spaghetti sauce. I'd prefer just to simmer it till I get it to the right consistency and simmer it slow. And do it that way. That, and it does tend to taste better. All right, now for those of you who are still new to the kitchen, when you're heating up oil in the pan, make sure you stay close by, because oil can quickly go from being warm and seeming okay to smoking to igniting and catching everything on fire. So keep an eye on it. I'll generally start mine on medium or medium low and wait for it. Now you will notice that every now and then our stovetop acts kind of janky. I don't know what it is about our appliances, but I break them often. I think we're about to have to go through our second microwave and second stove, and I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, when it comes to the oil, though, if you want to test to see if it's right, you can either pop in a little piece of one of your chopped up piece of your garlic or chopped up piece of the onion and watch it and wait for it to bubble, or you can go ahead and you can use the base of like a wooden spoon. When you put the wooden spoon in there on the pan, if you look down around the edges, little bubbles will start forming if the oil is hot. Depending on how the lighting is, if you look at it and you're being still and nothing's touching the oven and you see little ripples across the oil, that also means it's hot enough. My oil is not rippling and it was not bubbling on the spoon, so I'm going to turn it up just a little bit for everybody's sake, because watching me stand here stare at oil is probably boring as shit.
There's a question if you would like.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a question from a viewer that says that when they're depressed, sometimes they have a really hard time being motivated to cook. And when they grocery shop, they tend to spend tons on fresh vegetables and ingredients they plan to make, but that they end up going bad before they feel like cooking with them. Do you have any advice on getting motivated to cook for myself and my family before that happens? We really need to eat better.
Wow. Damn, that is a good question. All right, so...
Sounds familiar.
Yes, it does. All right, so we struggle with the same thing. We really do. That and my grocery shopping habits, they are absolutely horrid. Because I will write out a list and I will go in there and I will shiny object squirrel my way through.
Don't forget your oil.
The entire grocery store and end up coming back with everything that I didn't need and only half of what I actually needed. All right, so throw this in there. Since we do not have professional grade recording equipment, I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on this so that maybe it doesn't distort my voice so much. All right, now as far as the motivation to cook, that one I understand that struggle genuinely and deeply. I do the majority of our cooking. My wife said that a requirement for marriage was whoever she married had to cook. So I cook almost every night, and I understand that struggle through the depression and not wanting to cook. What I basically had to do was structure and regiment it into my day, which is about the only way I've been able to cope with depression and ADHD. Because if I do not force myself to structure it, I won't get it done. If I just tell myself I'll do it later, I won't. So I had to go through and make it to where now I'm lucky enough to where I work lucky and cursed that I work horribly early hours. So I will clock in at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm home around everybody else's lunchtime. Now, that gives me time to kind of set my mind straight before, and amp myself up to actually cook dinner. What I would recommend, especially if you notice that you have, patterns in your depression where throughout the week you have a few days that are really bad, a day or two that are just kind of meh, and then a few good days. You could go ahead and look into, and this is all just might works, but what has worked for us is I will generally try to keep a couple easy meals. So like we'll do tacos. Okay, so it's like we'll get the tomatoes, we'll get the stuff to make pico de gallo, we'll get refried beans. We would get ground beef, and we still get ground beef for our daughter. We don't force her to eat, vegetarian or vegan or anything else. She eats what she likes, which are not vegetables.
No.
But we'd keep that around. Something like tacos, because we can generally get those in on the stovetop onto our plate in about 25-30 minutes. Easier meals like the tacos, beef stroganoff. I have a few quick curry and stir fry recipes. These are all things I do actually plan on going over in videos, because I do know that this struggle to make food for your family when you don't feel like eating anything or doing anything, like it's a real damn struggle, and it's a lot to get through. And when you are in that position, I know that once dinner time rolls around, when you're making everybody fend for themselves, or everybody's eating cereal or eggs or peanut butter and jelly or whatever, it makes how you're feeling that much worse. Thank you for your question. I do hope that I have answered some of it, or maybe helped some. Like I said, I do plan on doing some easier, shorter recipes just for this sake. Not just for starters, but for needing something quick. Thank you. I'm going to check on this real quick. So we are going to saute this until the onions are slightly translucent. They're going to go ahead and excuse me. I'm going to get them to the point where they're translucent, and then once that's happened, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start adding my seasoning. Now, I generally prefer to add my salt, pepper, and all that after the onion and everything is softened up, because I believe, I don't know if it's true, but I believe that once it has done that, once the onion has actually cooked to the point that it's translucent, then the salt and everything can penetrate into it better, rather than just tossing it on top before it's cooked. It just kind of sits on top and then cooks into the oil or dissipates. Like I said, I believe that's right, but I'm not 100%. So for anybody that wants to fact check me, go ahead, please. I'm not in this to argue with anybody. If anybody during the course of this has a difference of opinion, that's awesome. I'm all for opinions, but I'm not going to argue opinions and facts. If I'm wrong about something and you correct me, all right, I appreciate the new knowledge. I don't know everything. Nobody does. I'm just hoping maybe I've got something that'll help you, and hell, who knows, maybe one of you have a comment or something to say that'll help me or help somebody else that's watching. All right. This is still not where I want it, so I am really going to have to turn it up, keep an eye on it, and talk to you guys. If anybody else has anything to ask, feel free. I can't read the comment screens, but my wife is monitoring everything right now. Oh my goodness. All right, now as far as the seasonings that I'm going to put in this, other than just salt and pepper, I have fresh thyme from our garden that we have pulled and dried earlier this year. I'm going to sprinkle some of that in. I will actually probably put a little bit of extra garlic powder in there, because we really like garlic, and I use the last of our good garlic bulbs. The rest of them we're having to put in the compost. And that's another thing.
Sometimes they go bad.
Yeah, sometimes produce goes bad. Back to the first question about the buying of the vegetables. We've been throwing out a lot of vegetables because I only recently changed diets. I used to be pretty much full-time carnivore. I would eat, meat and rice, or eggs and rice, or meat and potatoes. That was 90% of my diet. Since changing, I've had to learn how to grocery shop. So I try to find out when grocery stores receive fresh produce to put out, and then I try to shop on those days and shop once every few days. So I realized that just now that I missed a question. I'm sorry. I do get scatterbrained. All right, so my sauce is finally at a point where I can go ahead and start adding salt and seasonings.
Do you want to tell me what it looks like?
Well, I'm actually going to take a photo with my phone, and then I will upload the photos to Facebook tonight. Go. All right. Now, as I said, when I was taught this recipe, it was just sauteed onions and garlic, salt and pepper, a couple shakes out of an Italian seasoning bottle, and then diced tomatoes and tomato sauce, and it just cooked for a few hours. After that, you cook the noodles, and you'd have the sauce. Now, I like spaghetti sauce because it's versatile. You can throw all kinds of stuff in it. You can do mushrooms, peppers, carrots, celery. I mean, you can put pretty much anything into a basic red sauce. We'll do, most of our staples are, most of our staples for the kitchen are, bell peppers, onion, garlic. We keep cilantro on hand at almost all time. Some people don't like cilantro, says it tastes like soap. Apparently it's a brain thing. We love it. We put it in almost everything. So I just added salt. Now, I don't measure, so I just did a few grinds out of the salt shaker. I try to use low or no sodium canned tomatoes because I'm trying to keep my blood pressure and everything else down. That's also why I changed my diet. Now, when it comes to the spaghetti sauce, one of the reasons I do like it, when you are making it, and you make it ahead of time, especially if you're making it for your significant other or a new date or whatever, you want to impress them. This is an easy meal to do it with because it's simple. You can, yes, you take a little bit of time to prep it. You start it, check on it every 15 minutes or so. If you're like me, set alarms and set more than one, possibly on multiple devices. So set one on the microwave, set one on the stovetop, set one on your phone. Because if you're like me, you'll hear one go off and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to get that. Oh, hold on, wait, I got to go do this. And you'll go do that and you forget about it. No, set more than one alarm, please. Don't burn down your house or your apartment or your parents' house or your significant other's place for that matter. Hey, honey, I wanted to do something nice for you and torched your house. My bad. But no, it is an easy one to impress with, and it's an easy it's an easy recipe to make your own. It doesn't take much. Now, I throw different stuff in every time. I cannot say that I have ever made the same dish twice. It's like, yeah, I've made gumbo dozens of times, and it has never tasted exactly the same any time. I've made pancakes. They don't taste the same. Each batch is different. And a lot of times it's just because I get bored or I need something to occupy my mind, and so I try out different ingredients, or it's just that I don't have certain ingredients on hand. And like I said, rambling and getting lost, back to it. Another thing is, if you have the time to make spaghetti sauce because you're trying to impress someone, make it the night before, let it cool, put it in the fridge, let it sit overnight, take it out the next night, bring it back up to room temp slowly in your pot. It will taste so much better, I promise. Now, if you like a little spice and not a lot, when you reheat it, that's when you add your spice. If you like it really spicy, then go ahead and add your crushed red pepper or your cayenne or whatever you're doing, because the longer it sits like that, the spicier it'll get. That's another thing. If you are cooking with crushed red pepper, we'll use it a lot. We actually like to throw it in, I like to throw it in with the oil as the oil's heating, because I feel like it makes the whole dish spicier at the end versus sprinkling them on at the end, where you just have some bites that are spicy, some bites that aren't, and then some where you get crushed red pepper flakes stuck between your teeth or something like that. It just gets annoying. All right. So I have added my salt, my pepper, and I've added some of our thyme. And like I said, none of this is measurements. It's all pinches. I go by, sight, smell, the way it tastes when it's not piping hot and just, raw sauteed vegetables. If it helps you to, figure out your measurement and then write that down so that you have your recipe, by all means, please do. Like, this is just what works for me. All right, so now this is at a point where I'm going to go ahead and put in the diced tomatoes and stuff. Like I said, I'm going to do 2 cans tomato sauce, 1 can of diced tomatoes. You can use just tomato sauce. If you don't like chunky, if you don't like chunks of tomato, just use tomato sauce. If you don't like, runny sauce, buy stewed tomatoes instead of diced. I mean, buy, whole peeled tomatoes. Those actually make really good sauce. You throw in the whole peeled tomatoes in some olive oil, salt and pepper, and you just let it simmer down. It slowly turns into your tomato sauce. All right, so that's my diced tomato. The reason I'm only doing 1 diced tomato is diced tomatoes tend to have a higher water content than tomato sauce. Tomato sauce tends to be a little thicker. I don't want to have to cook out all that water tonight because in just a little while we have a friend stopping by that we'll be feeding tonight. He doesn't know it, so I mean we do that. People come over, we feed them. Sorry for the noise. I'm walking off screen. But that's another way that cooking has helped me with my depression is when we have people come over, even when I don't want to see people, there's something about being in the kitchen and just being able to cook. Because a lot of times, when we have people that come over and I don't, I'm awkward around people, even people that I know, and so I'll isolate, and I'll isolate in the kitchen and I'll start cleaning people's dishes or some shit. Well, cooking gives me something to do, and when we have people over, it does give me something to focus on, so I'm not focused on how awkward I feel or how nervous I am, and it allows me, to actually hold conversations with people that I might not be comfortable around. Yes, Susie, sorry, I'm working on it, damn it. There's something about feeding our friends and our families and our guests. I mean, even people that I've never met before that I enjoy. There's something about feeding people good food. And, you watch them close their eyes or their eyes roll back or they just go, There's something about that feeling that, I mean, I don't feel there are the right words to put to it. I mean, someone whose mind is a thesaurus probably has a good word for it, but the way it makes me feel, there's not an apt word. I mean, bliss is pretty good, but we enjoy it. I enjoy it. I love hosting people. Now, my wife hates cleaning up after me after we host people. God bless her, because she does it every time, and I make a huge freaking mess. All right, so that was the diced tomatoes. I just threw it in by itself because I did want some of that water to cook out. Now, a good amount of that water is cooked out, and I'm about to put the tomato sauce in on top. All right, so this will be my 2 cans of tomato sauce. Now, normally I would do crushed red pepper in this, or at least I did forever. And then, our daughter was born, and up until she was 2, she loved spicy food when she first started eating. Because my post-workout meal used to be essentially ground meat, beans, rice, onions, you know, whatever, but there were always like jalapenos or Thai dragons. Like, it was spicy. And then I topped it with sriracha. And she would eat that shit up. It was amazing. And then she developed words, and when she developed words, all of a sudden the foods that she loved became, it's too spicy, I don't like it. I'm like, you don't even know the word spicy. You've been eating spicy this whole time, and now, no. But, anyway, I love her to death. I'd do anything for her. But she doesn't like spicy, so Daddy doesn't put crushed red pepper in the sauces early anymore. Now I basically have to use the crushed red pepper as a garnish. And guys, I do apologize if the sound quality is horrid, if the lighting is horrid. This was a very spur of the moment. You know what? Screw it. If I'm going to do it, I need to go ahead and do it, so I took a leap. For those of you that don't know me, like, being on camera is one of my personal, like, circles of hell. There's that, you know, sitting in a crowded auditorium, you know, in the middle of everybody, going anywhere on Black Friday. Like, no, you will not find me waiting in line camping for shit. We'll just go ahead and describe me as the friendly neighborhood misanthrope. Like, I go pick up my daughter, I stand away from everybody else. I don't know who it is, but there's one person that does come and stand directly behind me that is most of the time less than 3 feet behind me, and it drives me crazy. I don't like people behind me, and I don't like people within arm's reach of me, especially like if I don't know you. And even if I know you, unless we are close and personal, I'm one of those people that's like, don't touch me on the shoulder and talk to me, please. That makes me cringe. It bothers me. It probably bothers other people too. And when I'm anxious and you put your hand on me like that and what you're talking to me, like I start to shut down. Like, I stop listening to you. All I want is to run away before I crawl out of my skin. Alright, so that's my second can of tomato sauce. Now, with mine, like I said, I'm about to put the veggie sausages in, and then I'm going to let this slowly simmer. And by slowly, I mean it's going to be between, alright, so ours has low, 2, 4, 6, 8 high, because low and high are numbers, apparently. But I'm going to put ours at about 2. Now, if yours is one that does like low, medium, high, high, you'd be putting yours between medium, low, and low. But, you know, check on it every 5 to 10 minutes. If you are a checking on it 10-minute person and you get in there and you start scraping and it feels like there is stuff stuck to the bottom, don't worry. Turn your eye down or off. Put the lid on the pot and let it slowly cool down. After about 5 to 10 more minutes, come back with your spoon and start scraping around the bottom. As long as you didn't leave it for too long at too high of a temperature, those little bits will break up, and it actually helps enhance the flavor a little bit, and it brings everything up because you haven't burnt it completely. Now, if you do this trick and you're scraping and it feels like there's like gravel, sorry, you burnt shit to the bottom of your pot. Spoon out what you can into another pot. Let that one cool. Once it's cool, then put it in the sink. Pour hot water in it with your soap and stuff. Do not put a screaming hot pot or pan in your sink with hot or cold water. Do not put anything hot in the sink. If it's glass or Pyrex and it's hot and screaming hot and you put cold water on it, that bastard will shatter. With some of these cheaper pots and pans, if it's screaming hot and you put water on it, you'll either ruin the finish or you will damage your pot or pan. So please, guys, if you're new to this, don't do it. Just let your pots and your pans cool normally. Be wary of your countertops. If you don't have granite or stone and you've got some kind of laminate, make sure you've got trivets, please. But anyway, I'm about to go ahead, chop up our sausage, throw it in there, and then I'm going to thinly slice, which is, well, I'm going to julienne some basil that is going to go on top of this after it's all done. Now, for those of you that do, chicken Italian sausage or pork Italian sausage, like I said, if you're using the meat sausages, I prefer to put them in earlier. These I put in later because if I put it in this early, if I put it in at the beginning, it just crumbles and I don't like it. It loses its texture. It's an unfortunate consequence, I think, to changing over. But overall, I feel pretty fucking amazing. So, I mean, there's that. Might be losing my mind a little bit, and a lot of people have seen me do a complete 180 on everything and anything I have ever said and done. I am a for or against, but hey, you know what? You don't like it, fuck you, and those that you do, glad you do. All right, so that's my sausage in the pot. I realize a lot of people say something about that. Innuendo is perfectly fine, guys, as long as you're not harassing the shit out of somebody and they tell you to stop and you keep doing it. If you do that, then you're just an asshole. Alright, so turning this one down. I'm on 2 for you low, medium people. That'll be between medium, low, and low. Everybody, I would like to say thank you, seriously and sincerely, for joining us tonight. This is a new experience for us and a learning experience, and for me, it's basically immersion therapy. I'm doing everything that pretty much terrifies the shit out of me. Oh, my wife brought up a good point, which is noodles. I am not cooking our noodles right this second because my sauce is going to simmer for an hour or 2. If I cook my noodles now, they will be garbage and I'll be throwing them away and cooking another batch. When your sauce is ready, go ahead and cook it to the time limit on the package. You'll see that things say 6 quart, 8 quart, If you want to measure 6 quarts of water or 8 quarts of water, you do you. I do noodles a little differently. There are purists out there that are going to tell me, oh, that's wrong, and those purists can eat it. But again, guys, thank you. I've actually enjoyed this a little more than I thought I would. I've been terrified of doing this and excited about it since I jokingly said I was going to do this like 2 weeks ago. Anyway, guys, thank you. I hope at least some of you have walked away with something, if not at least maybe a laugh, even if it was at my expense. But thank you, and please like and share. Everybody, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and have a good night.